Europe is secretly buying Bitcoin, and this is going to push Bitcoin to all-time highs, not only this cycle, but this year in 2024, because we have European central banks now adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets. And folks, I'm talking about the central banks of Norway and Switzerland are disclosing massive MicroStrategy holdings. If you don't know what MicroStrategy is, MicroStrategy now holds more than 1% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be created. And if we look at the picture right here, they don't sell their Bitcoin. They just keep accumulating more, people. So this is a great leverage bet on buying more and more Bitcoin. So you can see here, the central banks of Norway and Switzerland have now disclosed their substantial holdings after their most recent filings. And this is actually important because they have much larger GDPs than I initially expected. They're both basically top 10 European countries when it comes to the size of their economies. Here we have the full breakdown. Germany is the largest economy in Europe. And you can see very shortly down the list, you have Switzerland and Norway fighting for these top 10 spots. Norway is actually ranked number 11 here, so much larger than a lot of these other European nations here. But what are the specific takeaways with these central banks buying Bitcoin? Well, we have the specifics here. The Central Bank of Norway is called Norges Bank, and they own 1.1 million shares of MicroStrategy. I did a little research into Norges Bank. They're actually responsible for managing the government pension fund of Norway. The reason that's important, this is the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, and also they also control their foreign exchange reserves. The other specific takeaway here, it is the Swiss National Bank as the central bank of Switzerland here. Looking at them, they are responsible for their monetary policy and the sole issuer of Swiss franc banknotes. So we literally have the person in charge of printing Swiss banknotes is now buying Bitcoin. Are they printing money to buy Bitcoin? You bet your bottom dollar they are. And what I also find bullish, this is a 60% increase over last quarter. Now let's start doing the math on what this means for how much Bitcoin they hold and what is Bitcoin's price going to reflect later on in the cycle. Well, here we have Quentin048. He broke it down for us. Norwegian bank bought 1.12 million shares of MicroStrategy, and the Swiss bank bought 466,000. And we have someone, they did the math for the Swiss central bank, and we're going to do the math for Norway here. Swiss central bank now owns 514 Bitcoin through their MicroStrategy stock. There is a metric in which you can measure this, and you can see the Bitcoin per share of MicroStrategy, because we know how much Bitcoin they hold and we know what the company is worth. And you divide the number of shares by the number of Bitcoin and you get this number right here. So we have the Swiss total. Let's go ahead and do the math for Norway, everybody. So you saw the number here, 1,123,930 shares of MicroStrategy. Well, I have that number here, 1.1 million. This is the amount of Bitcoin per share, and we hit the equal button. Over 1,000 Bitcoin is now held by this European central bank. But I told you I was going to give you a price prediction. I have a great metric to tell you what I think Bitcoin is going to be worth from these moves of these central banks buying Bitcoin. To do that, we got to look at the market cap of gold. And so here we have the top assets by market cap. It has public companies, precious metals, and cryptocurrencies. Gold is the largest market cap of all assets at $16 trillion. But Bitcoin is no slouch either. It is in the top 10, and the entire amount of Bitcoin is worth $1.172 trillion. So my thesis is, with all these central banks literally printing money and buying Bitcoin exposure, I think Bitcoin will replace gold as an asset class held by these central banks. So I think Bitcoin will reach the market cap of gold eventually. So let's go ahead and do that math. Gold is worth 16.67 trillion. Bitcoin is worth 1.172. So we go ahead and divide here, and Bitcoin will do a 14x if it were to reach the price of gold. But what are we multiplying 14.2 by? We're multiplying it by the price of Bitcoin, which just fell below $60,000. Now, it looks like some Mt. Gox Bitcoin's on the move. Maybe the governments are colluding to lower the price of Bitcoin so they can then buy more Bitcoin as they print dollars. Now, Bitcoin is 59,234. And if we do the math to see what Bitcoin's price would be if it reached the market cap of gold, we hit the equal button, and you're looking at a $843,000 Bitcoin. That is the potential of Bitcoin. I do think Bitcoin is going to replace gold on all of these balance sheets eventually. I think Norway and Switzerland, they're just getting ahead of the curve. Now, if you're wondering, why are they buying MicroStrategy and just getting regular Bitcoin exposure? They have a lot of rules and regulations on buying risky assets, and so this is their secret backdoor method of accruing Bitcoin on their balance sheets. Folks, the moves are happening right now. The dominoes are falling. The governments are adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. The only question is, have you added Bitcoin to your portfolio? But I already know that you are, and you're hitting that like button. And folks, I'll see you in your diamond hand of Bitcoin at the top.